Well, hello. Is that AONL, American Association of Nursing Leadership? I'm Kevin Griffin. Welcome to my studio, or is it? And I know we're doing social distancing and this is a virtual speech, but let's get real. You're in your office, you're in your car, you're in your house, I'm in my studio. I think we're safe, so let's get rid of this. Today we're going to talk about creativity, specifically what I do to stay creative, inspired, engaged, and successful. Pablo Picasso, that's right, this is a high value production. Pablo Picasso, most people know, famously said that we're all born artists. But the challenge is, how do we stay artists as we grow older? Or put another way, how do we grow into our creativity as opposed to out of it? Now, I don't think that Pablo, looking over my shoulder, was saying that all of us are going to be Jackson Pollock in a studio doing a drip painting while a beautiful or handsome muse eggs us on from the corner. What I think that Picasso meant is that all of us, whether we're a baker, a plumber, a lawyer, a nurse in a position of leadership, or a musician, all of us bring artistry and creativity to our daily tasks. Now, if we can agree on that basic premise that we're all artists, that we're all creative animals, that it's not a stretch to say what can help one person stay creative and engaged and flexible and relevant can also help another. Now, amazingly enough, though it's hard to believe, I've been doing this music, performing in my band Better Than Ezra for over 30 years. That's right. That means I started when I was 7, because I'm 30, something like that. Anyhow, over the past few years, people, magazines, and young artists that I get to work with, they come to me and they say, how am I able to stay creative and writing hit songs 30 years into the game? And at first I really didn't have an answer. I was like, I don't know, I just do what I do. But then I started thinking about it. And I realized that there are certain creative practices that I do in order to stay creative, in order to stay inspired. Now, in order for you to know where I'm coming from, you have to know where I've been. So I want you to suspend reality. Come with me. We're going to go to 1995, the summer of 1995, when Better Than Ezra reigned supreme. We're going to the 90s. Whoa, woo! Oh, it gets better, ladies and gentlemen. We're on the stage, it's RFK Stadium, it's 1995, and a little band that no one said could do it, Better Than Ezra from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, is playing to 88,000 people. Let's do this. You can dance if you want to. Woo! Come on, AONL, let it out. Looking around the house, hidden behind the window and the door, searching the signs of life, but there's nobody home. Oh! Now maybe I'm just too sing along. Yeah, you can dance. Or maybe I'm just too frightened by the sound of it. Pieces of note fall down, but the letter said, it was good living with you, it was good, it was good living with you, it was good, good, yeah, good, yeah. Sound of 88,000 people streaming. And we're back. What? The guitar's gone? You have no idea what's coming for you. So that was 1995, the summer of 1995. The next 5 years was platinum albums, gold albums, and then albums that were neither because they weren't selling. It was an amazing time. I was living my dreams. I got to pay off my credit cards. But in 5 years, by 2000, 2001, Better Than Ezra sales were going down more and more and more. And in 2001, I got a call that every musician dreads from the lawyer that we'd been dropped. And it was a punch to my ego. It was a punch to the gut of my ego, because suddenly you have everything you want. You're on MTV, you're having success, and then suddenly you're just another unsigned band. But it was in that moment of of self-doubt and not knowing what I was going to do, that I started looking towards people that I admired. In music, it was Max Martin, who's written all the Backstreet Boys and Britney Spears songs, Carole King, Carol Bayer Sayer. But also in business, it was Jack Welch. It was an old book by Henry Ford. But what I started seeing when I started studying these people, these great leaders, I started seeing consistencies, these things that were running a parallel track. And I started coming up with things that I started doing on a daily basis, 5 creative practices, if you will, that mirrored the people that I admired, but also were incorporating some things that I learned. The first one is collaboration. Now it sounds easy, doesn't it? But up until 2001, when I was unceremoniously dropped, I was a lone wolf. I wrote all the Better Than Ezra songs. I didn't want any help. I was the top dog, alpha dog, the leader of the band, and I didn't want to have any collaboration. But what I had to say to myself was, hey, I'm kind of at a creative deadlock. The songs were uninspired. My career was stalled. I had been dropped. So I needed something else. And that collaboration, that first creative practice, started to change everything in my life. Of course, the person that introduced me to collaboration, well, that person was, you guessed it, Meatloaf. What? Meatloaf? Bat out of hell? The kind of crazy guy from The Apprentice? Yep. So in 2001, Better Than Ezra was making an album. We had cobbled together some songs, the songs that had been rejected from the label that dropped us. We were in Los Angeles and we were mixing our album at this amazing place called Conway Studios. 3 studios in this really cool manicured garden place right smack dab in the center of Hollywood. In one studio was Justin Timberlake making the Justified record. In the center studio was Better Than Ezra. And in the third studio, Meatloaf. Or as Alan Kovac, his manager, said, Meat. Well, anyways, Alan Kovac, this famous manager who managed the Bee Gees, Blondie, Motley Crue, and Meatloaf, came to me one morning and he said, hey, Kevin, Alan Kovac, that's my best Brooklyn accent. Meat really loves your songs and he'd love for you to write with him. So I go back to my friends I'm like in the band and I'm like, hey, Meatloaf wants me to write a song with him. And at first I was kind of laughing about it because inside I was like, I don't collaborate. But then I was like, what do I have to lose? I've been dropped. My career was kind of going nowhere. I was at a creative impasse. I was uninspired. So 2 hours later, I found myself in the green room of Meatloaf. Now, I know my mind is embellishing, and maybe we can get some effects. I swear that when I opened the door to Meatloaf's green room, there was like rolling fog on the ground, and Meatloaf came in with a mask like a high school production of Phantom of the Opera. But no, it wasn't that at all. It was just me. It was Meatloaf. And in short order, I realized this guy was amazing, and there was a reason he was a rock icon, that he'd sold 50 million records at that time. Anyhow, we wrote a song called Testify, and while it didn't do anything in the United States, worldwide, it was huge. If you want to see an exercise in bad taste, go to YouTube, Meatloaf, Testify, Sydney Opera House, and then we'll talk after that. But anyhow, that opened my eyes to collaboration because it was so much fun, and it was a song, it was a project, it was an endeavor I would have never done on my own, and it was only because I opened myself up to working with someone else. And that began me working with other artists for Alan Kovac. Blondie, I had a hit song called Good Boys, check that out. Bee Gees, it was a terrible song. And even Motley Crue, I wrote with Nikki Sixx. But it opened my eyes to collaboration, and suddenly I was doing what all the people that I admire in business and music were doing. They were surrounding themselves with other creative individuals. And specifically, they were giving people around them who had skill sets that they didn't possess a voice, allowing them to collaborate with them and trusting them and not micromanaging. And when I suddenly let go of the reins a little bit and surround myself with creative people, like, for instance, when I'm writing, I'll have somebody who's a top-line person. In music, that means the melody, the thing you sing along. A great lyricist, some guy who's a great beat guy, and some guy who's just an amazing guitarist. And suddenly when the 5 of us are working, that's when it gets crazy. That's when we're cooking with gas. And all the hits you hear today, even in 2001, it's collaborative efforts. All the things Elon Musk does, Jack Welch, any leader, it's collaborative efforts. And when I found that even though suddenly I wasn't the person getting 100% of the credit or 100% of the royalties, I was maybe getting 20% on songs, those songs were becoming hits. So by being generous and letting go of the reins and allowing other people in to collaborate with me, I was doing better than I'd ever done. Being generous and being collaborative was paying dividends beyond my wildest dreams. Now, there's a song that was the first song I wrote or collaborated with somebody that wasn't with someone who is a member of AARP. And this happened in not that there's anything wrong with AARP. I'm getting close, but I'm not yet in that association. Unlike AONL, which you are, but I feel like we are. Am I kind of like a junior initiate? We'll talk later. Anyhow, in 2005, I had this guy come down, a kid, 18 years old, from Bangor, Maine. He came to my studio right before Hurricane Katrina hit my studio in New Orleans. It's a long story. But we wrote this song, and this is an example of using creative collaboration. Whoa! What? And we're back with the guitar, ladies and gentlemen. Just get some popcorn. Pull the kids up. It's going to be a long ride. So, like I was saying, 2005, I had this kid, Howie Day, in my studio, and I played him this idea. I had a chorus, but I didn't have a verse. And in 30 minutes, we had this song. I knew it was a hit, and I want to play it for you right now. It goes like this. The dawn is breaking, a light shining through. You're barely awake, and you can get a light over your head, real or virtual. I'm tangled up in you. Yeah. I'm quiet, you know. Well, I follow, you'll go. I can feel you. I found I'm scared to know I'm always on your mind. 'Cause even the best fall down sometimes. Even the wrong words seem to rhyme. And out of the doubt that fills your mind, you finally find you and I collide. That's right, collide. Is it getting old already? Just let me continue with my effects. Ben, my auteur, my director, is directing me. So we're having fun with this. I hope you enjoyed Collide. The biggest thing I want to leave you with about creative practice number one, collaboration, it's about teamwork. It's about surrounding yourself with talented people, allowing them to do what they do best. And it pays so many dividends. The second creative practice I call filling the well. And I like to think of creativity as a finite well within us. And as we grow up, as we listen to our first songs, see the movies we love, our relationship with our parents, our first love, our first heartbreak, our education, it's filling that well. And when we're being creative, when I'm making music or you're making decisions, we're drawing upon that well. And there's the old saying, you can't give what you don't have. So it's incumbent that as we're drawing upon that well, we're putting more experiences back in. And it sounds easy, but so many people reach a certain point and are not continuing that education. For me, it takes on a few different forms. For music, I'm a voracious consumer of music. On Spotify, I'll find some new artists. Recently, it was Billie Eilish, and I was just listening to tons of her music. And then, you can hit that tab on Spotify, related artists. I went down that rabbit hole. And then I went to YouTube, and suddenly 2 hours has gone by. But what's happened for me as a songwriter is I've been exposed to new chords, new production techniques, new melodies, and it's osmosis. And so I'm filling myself up creatively with new music, but it's not just artistic, there's also the business side as well. Music has different trade journals like Rolling Stone, that's the easy one, but there's Billboard, there's hits, there's radio and records, and they're full of the charts. And I go on a weekly basis, either virtually or they still do some print magazines. So when I'm looking at my peers like Pharrell, Max Martin, Ryan Tedder, what I'm seeing is what they're doing, and I'm being inspired, and also I'm able to check my ego. Some of the hardest things to do in my business, in any position of leadership, is be able to say, what are my peers doing that I'm not doing? When I check my ego, I'm able to say, oh, I can do that. Oh, that's what they're doing. When you check your ego, suddenly you can compete because you know what your competitors are doing. I have a friend, you may know him, his name's Emeril Lagasse. Bam, right? And Emeril, if he's not in the kitchen, you know where he is? He's in other people's restaurants. He's seeing what his competitors are doing. And you just have to be able to check your ego all the time. And going back to the trade journals like Hits and Rolling Stone and Billboard, I'm also looking where the different business people and executives are in my industry and where they're going. For example, there's an A&R guy named David Walter. He was just at Capitol Records. We've always had a great relationship. He always places songs that I write for his artists. Well, he just went to Interscope Records, and I've never had any luck with Interscope Records. But now David's there, and now I have an in. I wouldn't know that if I wasn't filling the well and knowing what was happening in business. And by doing that, whether it's with listening to new music and being inspired artistically or the business side, I'm able to connect the dots. I'm able to know how to achieve what my goals are. You know, when I think of the well, when I think of filling the well, I think of a story I want to share with you. It was 2011. I'm in a studio called Harmony Studios. It's a little place in West Hollywood, California, off Santa Monica Boulevard. It's a nondescript studio, unlike this beautiful studio I've allowed you into. Except for this, there's a piano. It's a Yamaha C7 big black grand piano. And what that studio is known for, that's where Dan Wilson and Adele wrote a song called Someone Like You. You know the song? Never mind, I'll find someone like you. I'll do the whole song a cappella for you if you want. But anyhow, so that studio is famous because they wrote that song, just a vocal and just a piano. So the day I was writing in there, I did an Instagram, because that's what we do, musicians. Maybe you do it too. I do an Instagram and I take a picture of the C7 piano in Harmony Studios, and I'm like, today I'm writing a song in Harmony Studios where Dan Wilson and Adele, and I tag them in Instagram. Okay, now I've got to beat it. And I promptly sent it off. I wrote my song that day with the band. It was okay, but it wasn't a hit or anything, and promptly forgot about it. 2 days later, I started getting all these friends texting me and stuff. They were like, dude, have you seen your Instagram feed? And I was like, no. And I go on Instagram, and there's like 2,000, 3,000 comments where normally I get 100 comments. And everybody's like commenting, saying Adele, Adele. And I'm like, what? So I go down the comments where I remember where I said, okay, I'm going to beat Someone Like You. And I get down, and Adele responded. And her only comment was, well. So, filling the well. Second, creative practice. The last thing I'll say about filling the well to take with you is if you're going to inspire, you have to be inspired. The third creative practice I use is what I call changing your attitude. Now, I'm not talking about how your parents may have said when you were a child, you better change your attitude. Or for me, if it was my high school football coach saying, Griffin, you better change your attitude. Where I'm talking about attitude is a way it's used in aviation. Now, we all know what altitude is, right? It's how high a plane is above the earth. Well, attitude is a plane's orientation to the earth. Now, this is something a famous songwriter, Sean Sawyer, taught me while we were in his dilapidated Cessna flying from Nashville to Louisville to do a write. We took a plane to do a write. It's a long story. We don't have time. But I was talking to Shane. I was like, Shane, I've kind of got writer's block. I'm kind of in this creative deadlock. And Shane looked at me and just did a nosedive. And I'm holding on to the inside of the Cessna. Can we get the inside of a Cessna? Do we have that? That'll do. I'm holding on to the inside of the Cessna. And then he pulls up, we do a nosedive, and we did a loop. Thank God I was strapped into my seat. But we finally got right, and I gathered my senses, and Shane was like, son, do you know what attitude is? An attitude is a plane's orientation to the earth, whether you're yawing to the left, you're yawing to the right, your nose down or your nose up, and it's all about an angle of approach. And he used this rather dramatic way to illustrate a way to break a creative impasse. How do you approach your task, your problem, from a different angle? And for me, when I write a song, let me get my guitar on. You ready? You want to do it again? Whoa! God, it never gets old. This is James Cameron Avatar level stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Don't take it for granted. No one else is doing this. It's only for AONL. So anyhow, normally when I write a song, I start with the guitar part. I'm just writing a song. I'll do something like this. God, I wish I would have written that song, Jack and Diane, by John Mellencamp. But sometimes playing guitar and starting a song that way doesn't work. So now I practice changing my attitude. I change my angle of approach on how I'm going to break a creative deadlock. So I'll start with the beat on my computer. Or if that's not working, I'll write a poem. I'll find some lyrics that I've done on the notes in my iPhone. And if that's not working, something I'll do often is I'll reverse engineer a hit. And what I mean by that, I'll take a song that I love, a song that's huge on the radio, and I'm like, what are the elements in that song? I'll figure out the guitar part. I'll figure out the beat. I'll build the song on Pro Tools, which is a computer program you use to make music. All the music you hear is either Pro Tools or Logic. But I'll reverse engineer that song. I'll start taking the bits and pieces away to see what they did. And a great example of changing my attitude, changing your attitude, your angle of approach to break a creative deadlock. For me, in 2011, I'll share this with you, I was working with this guy named Shy Carter. Now Shy, today, has written tons of hits, but at the time, he was really just known for his work in St. Louis with a rapper we all know and love, Nelly. You know Nelly. If you want to go and take a ride with me, freewheeling. Yes, I can feel you dancing, you kooky nurses. I can feel it. Well, we were in my studio at the time. I wasn't living in Nashville. I was living in Los Angeles, California, in the cool enclave of Silver Lake. And we were in the studio. We were working for a couple of hours, and nothing was happening. It was one of those days, you know, when you're just uninspired and you're looking in that top right corner of your computer and it's just dragging by. It was one of those days. So we'd been in there about 2 hours, and we took a break. We went and got some coffee, and we came back, and I was like, you know what? Why don't we, to Shy, why don't we write a song that's something like Jason Mraz, I'm Yours, and Hey Soul Sister by Trey? And he was like, yeah, okay. So I started doing this guitar thing. And that felt good. So what we decided to do to break that creative impasse, we built a beat and started going. We built that, and then Shy, who was singing the song, he was like, yo, Kevin. Now Shy was from St. Louis. He's like, yo, Kevin, man, give me some auto-tune on my vocal. Now, we all know what auto-tune is. T-Pain made it famous. Cher made it famous with the song, Do You Believe in Love? Well, it's an app. It's a program, but it's like an app you have on your phone. And what you do is you put it on your vocal track. You tell the program the key of the song that you're in. And then anything you sing through that app is perfectly in tune. It's a third, it's or a fifth. And this is how so often in pop music, melodies are written. So you just start singing anything. Ooh, and it all sounds amazing. Well, Shy started doing that, and I was playing this, and by changing our attitude, by changing our creative, and then suddenly within 30 minutes, by changing our attitude, by changing our angle of approach, in 30 minutes, we had what I knew was a hit song. I called my friends in this little band from Atlanta, the ATL, a little band called Sugarland. I was like, yo, Jennifer Nettles, J-Lo, J-Net, not J-Lo, J-Net. And I was like, hey, I think I have your hit song. And she said, send it on. I sent it to her, and it was their biggest single to this date. I'm gonna play it for you right now, a few keys lower than Jennifer Nettles singing. So if you like country, this is the only hit I got. Absolutely no one knows me better. No one that can make me feel so good. How do we stay so long together when everybody said we never would? Just when I start to think they're right, love is dying. There you go, making my heart beat again, heartbeat again, heartbeat again. There you go, making it feel like a kid. Won't you do it one time? Come on, y'all. There you go, pulling it right back in, right back in, right back in. And I know I'm never letting this go. I'm stuck on you. Stuck like glue. You and me, baby, we're stuck like glue. Stuck like glue. You and me, baby, we're stuck like glue. Come day, come dum. K Griff is rocking AON virtually. I said AONL, American Association of Nursing Leaderships. That's right. I'm just letting you know this is live. This is just for you, y'all. It's not recorded. It's not planned. There you go, making my heart beat again, heartbeat again, heartbeat again. There you go, making me feel like a kid. Won't you do it one time? Thank you! And we're back. That's pretty good. That was a pretty good pick toss. I hope you did a good work there, Darla. You caught that pick. So we've talked about collaboration. We've talked about filling the well. We've talked about changing your attitude. The fourth creative practice I want to talk about is leaving your comfort zone. Now, we've heard about leaving your comfort zone as kind of a buzzword in self-help things, but the reason it's a cliche is because, well, it's true. And what I've found, and what I think you have found as well, is that when you uproot yourself from your familiar surroundings, that's often when, if you embrace it, that's often for me, that's when I'm at my most creative. When I leave the studio, when I'm forced to be writing in some far-flung place like Ibiza, which I've done with James Blunt. Oh God, I've got so many stories, but we have limited time. But when you leave your familiar surroundings, that's when life is in flux. And that's when you have to think on your feet. That's when you have to stay flexible. That's when you have to adapt and stay malleable and nimble. This time right now with Corona and what we're going through with the pandemic, and what all you amazing people of AONL and all the people who you work with and that you lead, this time is unprecedented for frontline caregivers. And this is no better example of leaving your comfort zone. It's a time when you have to think on your feet. For me, leaving my comfort zone is all the Zoom rights I have to do. Now, it sounds a big deal. I mean, you guys are going through the real stuff. But for me, it is a big deal because normally I write face-to-face. We're in a room. There's that visceral interaction with two songwriters, and you're singing at the microphone. But now I've had to do these Zoom rights, and it's like speed dating. So there's a lot of songwriters I know, really successful songwriters. They're not able to adapt. They're not embracing being a little discomforted, being out of their comfort zone. But for me, doing the Zoom rights is like, it's kind of like watching a movie with subtitles. You know, like when a movie with subtitles first comes on, like when you watch Parasite, you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm in the mood for a movie with subtitles. But if the movie is compelling, then within 5 or 10 minutes you're in. Same way with me. If the work is compelling that I'm working on, if the song is amazing, then I'm in. So leaving your comfort zone, embrace the discomfort and use it to be inspired. All right, we've gone through 4 creative practices: collaboration, filling the well, changing your attitude, leaving your comfort zone, being a little uncomfortable. The 5th creative practice is something I like to call, this is a big one, this is heady Dan Brown, Da Vinci Code stuff. I call it dare to be stupid. And what I mean by it is when I'm in a songwriting session and I create an atmosphere where ideas are encouraged, where a bad idea isn't stigmatized, when people don't second guess themselves for fear of saying something wrong, when those governors or those blinders are taken off, that's when I get the amazing songs. There's a songwriter, his name's J.T. Harding. He's written so many Keith Urban songs, Florida Georgia Line songs. I mean, it's crazy. I wish I was as successful as him songwriting. But what I love about him is he has no filter. He dares to be stupid. And I'm not talking about, of course, I'm using dare to be stupid as something that sounds a little bit over the top. But he has no filter. He'll throw every idea against the wall. And often you're in a songwriting session and he's just throwing out the worst lyrics, and then suddenly, kaboom, he'll throw out a lyric like, "She was a heavy metal pedal steel player." And I'm like, wait, where did that come from? We're using that. And that was in a big Florida Georgia Line song. But by creating an atmosphere where, you can say anything and it can be embraced and weighed, and by opening your ears up to your collaborators, to your employees, to their ideas, and allowing them to feel like their ideas are valid, that's when things get great. Here's an example of not doing that. Years ago, I wrote with the great Max Martin, who is the greatest songwriter, the most successful songwriter of the past 20 years. Every hit, Can't Stop the Feeling, Britney Spears, Hit Me Baby One More Time. Google Max Martin if you want to. He's done all right. But I was in a songwriting session with him, and I was so intimidated. I was second guessing everything I was saying. So it was self-imposed, right? But maybe there was a little bit of attitude in the room with some of the collaborators. But it ended up being a bad songwriting session for me because the atmosphere was just so stifling. So when I'm running a session, when people come over to my studio, it's like, hey man, people know, throw those ideas, dare to be stupid, take the governor off. One of my favorite quotes is by somebody you've probably seen on TED Talks. His name is Sir Kenneth Robinson. And his quote is this: "You're never going to come up with something truly groundbreaking unless you're prepared to fail." That's amazing. That's powerful stuff. You have to dare to be stupid. You have to come up with crazy ideas. You have to collaborate, fill the well, change your angle of approach, leave your comfort zone like we're being forced to in this current pandemic. But most of all, you have to dare to be stupid. You have to create an atmosphere where people come with their best and there's no stigmatization of a bad idea. Say, hey man, that was great. But a lot of times you find kernels of wisdom in all those ideas. So I leave you with saying, trust yourself, be flexible as a leader, create an atmosphere where ideas are encouraged. And I bet if you do those things, if you take a little bit of wisdom and some of these incredible special effects, you'll write your own smash hit, like I've managed to do a couple of times. Guys, thank you so much for having me. AONL, until we meet again.